There we go. Oops, wait. Of course, as we go live, my nose itches. Welcome, everybody, to another Marketing Momentum with Charles and Deborah. Hi, Charles.
Hi, Deb. Hi, everybody.
Yeah, we're just commenting, and I know, Charles, where you're going, and so I'll set it back up. But right before it went live, I said, okay, see, on my end, I know Charles doesn't have to think about these things, but it's like, what color hair should I do? Should I do the normal color, or should I do purple? And since we're talking about prints a little bit, it's like
Right.
purple. And it didn't occur to me, and I know, go ahead, I'll let you take over on why that occurred to me.
Well, I mean, I do accessorize. I try to accessorize my hat. I'm not matching today, but
Kind of Christmas colors though, but I love the hat. Although I think I've said that, I think you've worn it before, and I say that every
yeah,
time. For some reason, it's a great
I
color.
guess I'm matching in a guy sort of way, right?
There we go. There we go.
Green and
Oh,
orange goes with maroon just perfectly to me.
there we go. Guys can follow different rules, can't they?
I hope so.
That's what we were having. Okay, totally off topic, but with Easter coming up, and my husband bought me this, this cute little pink dress, the whole thing, and he's like, "Oh, but you can wear this hat that I got you in New York." And I'm like, well, I can't because it's black, and Easter is supposed to be the summer colors, and you're entering in and I have white gloves, and I'm like, but I can't do the white gloves with a black hat, but I could do the red dress with a black hat, but I would have had to have done that last week.
And you just confused him.
Exactly. He's like, well, why not combine all those together? I don't know. I think sometimes we follow too many rules, and it's a lot more fun to just be eccentric and do whatever.
Yeah.
So with that, I have to admit, although the headline looked good, and of course it included Prince, so that just made it, all of a sudden I'm starting to hear Prince music in my head.
Yeah.
Oh, do you think we have to actually explain to viewers who Prince is? It is possible that
I
we're
don't
just like
think so.
oldies.
No,
Okay.
I think he's pretty universal.
Okay, he's so cute. I don't know. He's so short, like Chihuahua size. I'm sorry, I'm not calling Prince a dog, by the way. I just think he's just really cute. Anyway, so you sent over this wonderful article, and I didn't have the privilege to read it, but the headline looked good. So go ahead, Charles. Tell us about the article that you read.
Yeah, and one of the things I think I even said, I mean, it certainly helps to be Prince in order to do this, but basically, he's just stopping by these places, random places, and just doing a concert, right? And so, and I don't know that it says he's charging anybody. He just stops in and does at various places around the U.S. I guess probably even around the world. And of course, if you're Prince, you're going to be able to get somebody to jam with you, I guess. And I just think, you know, eh, of course, this is going. I mean, people are going to get wind of this, right? And
Mhm.
and so I mean, it adds to this his likability, right? I mean, everybody says this about musicians that they're unapproachable and they're weird and they're kind of standoffish and this whole deal. But I mean, here's this dude, right, who's massively famous, and he's got time to just kind of stop in and just jam, which says, hey, this dude likes the music he's playing, and so
Yep.
and so maybe you can kind of take it from there. I think it's cool, and I think that probably a lot of other people who hear about that too.
It might start, okay, this is really going to date me, but this might start like, the candid camera. I don't even know if they still do that or if they had a new one, but I can't relate from an experiential level. But as far as watching it, the idea was, maybe this is like it's a phrase now in our culture as far as, oh, this is candid camera, right? You're setting me up. This
Right,
is candid
right,
camera because you just didn't know
right.
where
Yeah.
they were going to show up. Well, now it's like, wow, maybe it's Prince. And by the way, guys, make sure he's not a kid. He's definitely older than a kid, but he is a little bit shorter in stature. So if you are looking for Prince, make sure you're aware of who you're looking for.
Yeah, that's right.
He's got a large personality, but yeah, I could see him showing up on like in Santa Monica on the promenade. That seems like, although maybe he won't show up at the obvious places. That would be really
Right.
interesting.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure he's not. He's pretty savvy too, and I think that a
Oh,
lot of this kind
very.
of goes to really probably what is essentially, even if it's just him coming up with it, he doesn't have other people thinking that stuff out for him. It's marketing, right? Because
Hmm. Hmm.
this really adds to the aura and the mystique that is Prince.
Definitely. And, I think Prince is one of the most brilliant musicians out there, not just the music end of it, but I mean, that he is so brilliant as far as concepts and all the, if you look at, for instance, all the most of the Go-Go's. Wait, I was like trying. Okay, I have to access a music encyclopedia that probably doesn't fit anymore. But he's written so many different songs for different people that they don't even realize that's written by Prince because he may not have performed it. So even on the business side, he's brilliant, but also obviously as an entertainer and musician. Didn't he write for? He wrote some songs for Linda Carlisle, I think, too.
He's written songs for, I mean, a
Oh,
ton
he's
of people, right? Yeah.
Sheena E. I mean, yeah, the list we could go have a contest to say who can list the most songs that
Right,
Prince
right,
has
right.
written. I
Yeah.
mean, he's like a machine. I totally now I'm listening to way too much music in my head. No, I'm not crazy, but I'm losing the train of thought. But okay, there was something else. Oh, he is, by the way, from what I understand, he is approachable. My husband actually delivered furniture to his house, and he's like the classic, as we call it back in Minnesota host as far as being very kind. So this isn't fake. I'll put a little endorsement. I didn't meet him
Yeah.
personally, but he is a very kind person from what I understand.
So now, now what this reminded you of, and I've actually kind of done just from our last call that we did with Madeline Sklar, because I'd never heard of Amanda Palmer, and I know a lot of this really kind of gave you a seg into kind of who she is, and just that whole vibe of, hey, you know what, I'm gonna do the music for the people, and I'm gonna be among them. How how doable is this for somebody who they're not Prince, they're just they're Jack or John, you know, musician. How possible is this kind of thing where you kind of give yourself to whoever your audience is?
Yeah, I
Right, 'cause
love the
you're a
wording
musician.
on that. Because two things came to mind when we were talking about Amanda Palmer, and I've watched her TED Talk, and as a prelude to that, I love her TED Talk. It's very inspiring. I need to go watch it again. I'm like the opposite of Amanda Palmer when it comes to the ask. Like she talks about, why do I keep wanting to call it the ask? But the whole thing about asking for help.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
mean, she has that down to a science and art, whatever you want to call it. That is the hardest thing for me to do, is to ask people. I want to go do things for people. So asking for help is a really hard thing to do, and that's why what she says is that much more inspiring. Okay, that's the prelude. But your prelude, I would use a musical term. Your question as far as how doable, first of all, I can say I can't do what Amanda's doing, and not because of the ask, but because there's a part in the TED Talk which I actually admire that she can do this. It's just I'm not at the point where I could. But I think would she say she stripped down naked or something, allowed the fans to touch
Yeah,
her
that's
and feel it.
right.
And
Yeah.
I get the artistic and the connection. I am just not, you might be able to get me in Hawaii at, a luau there as far as,
Right,
culturally
right, yeah.
speaking, and the topless. I might be able to move that direction, but I'm not quite at a point where I can take my shirt off and let strangers touch me. I think that might just kind of freak me out just a little bit.
But
So
do you think that's what the attraction to this to her music is, or do you think that it is it the music and the connection, or is it this whole other thing, this whole other artsy part, or is it both?
I think it's both, but I think what's challenging, if someone were to analyze Amanda Palmer, as some of us musicians do, and try to figure out what is it that's successful, because I think she broke a record on Patreon recently, and she's broke Kickstarter as far as crowdfunding, and it's not like, the amount that she's broken the record, it's not like she's bribing these people, or she'd have to
Right,
be,
right, yeah.
so she really gets support. And I try to, when I'm analyzing, I'm trying to say, okay, her approach, for example, and not to keep bringing this up, but it's probably on a scale. It's probably one it's on the side that's easy to highlight this. I want to keep telling myself that it is not about stripping down, letting people touch you.
Right,
That
yeah.
is just simply, in other words, that shouldn't be the focal point of who Amanda Palmer is. It should be about the person, about the music. But then part of me says, okay, so if I'm going to copy someone's strategy, because we watch successful people and say, okay, how about if I break that down to recipe and I go try it?
Hmm.
Does that mean I should go try it and see if that element is really, on a pie chart? How important is that one facet or that one component or element in the overall success?
Well, you okay, so I mean, I think people are as passionate, and I'm a jazz listener, so I know people are as passionate about jazz as they are about any genre of music. Um, do you think that the people who like jazz, right, and that's kind of where your
Mhm.
your side of the realm is, are people who like jazz, if you say to them some kind of way, hey, for me to keep doing this, I don't know how you make the pitch, but for me to keep doing this, um, I mean, are people gonna? Is there a medium, right, that people will give you their PayPal, right, or give you the money, as opposed to is crowdfunding the way to do that? Is it because that was the right medium to ask for the money, or is it just her? You know what I mean?
I think a lot of it is her and her ability. And we just talked on, I was like, what show is that? Web Tools TV, as far as the different personalities, people that can close the sale. And I think a lot of it is her personality. And also, I think there's that magic number where you get so many people that are contributing that pretty soon, and I felt this pull as well, was it's like, oh wow, X thousands of people are supporting, I should do it too. Like there's something about our human nature that says, well, everyone else is doing it, I should go do it too. And at some point it's going to become exponential, then it's going to be shared on social media, and then it's just going to grow legs of its own. So I think that's a big piece of it. But obviously she's got some knack for going beyond just 6 people supporting her on any crowdfunding.
Hmm.
And I didn't used to believe in I shouldn't say I used to believe in, for me I was all about go earn the money, and I paid for the production on my own albums. It's like, oh, that's a respectful way to do it, and so forth. But I don't want to discount crowdfunding. But more recently, I'm looking at going, if you approach it as I'm not asking for a handout. Instead, I'm saying it's like a membership thing. You become a part of my community with this financial, and I will give you this as it's a transaction.
Yeah, and so because I'm guessing that the whole model now has broken down, right? I mean, because there's a lot of chaos in what used to be. You find a label, that label promotes you. But at the same time, though, they were gatekeepers because they could decide they didn't like you, or they could decide you didn't have it. But that filter's gone now, right? Because you can
Oh,
now, in a sense, go
yeah.
straight to the people. But the problem now is if I, as a musician, I'm not a musician, but if I as a musician go straight to the people, is, as you said, somehow or another, in some venue, I have to say, hey, can you need to pay me in some kind of way, or not, you need to, but can you?
Right, right. And that's the hardest thing. Like I've told people, what was it? Somebody, I'm really big on the whole anti-piracy thing, and involved in people. I'm actually advisor for a group that, I don't know how much of this I was supposed to disclose, but goes to Congress as far as protecting musicians' right for their intellectual property. And
Yeah.
so I'm not into, and I'm not out there to judge you, but it's just something that I believe that the musicians should be paid for their work. And somebody said to me, well, they're really rich. It's like, okay, honey, I don't know if you're thinking 50 years ago when you had the scenario like you're describing, Charles, but nowadays it's like the musicians that I know, especially the indie musicians, they're not trying to get rich. Okay, they probably wouldn't say no to being rich, but they're just trying to pay the electricity. They're just trying to buy the food. The same thing all of us are trying to do. And a few pennies here, a few pennies there. Okay, more than pennies. They need that in order to pay their bills. They're producing content that we're enjoying. Somewhere I went off topic on what you're saying, but yeah, that challenge is something that I think more recently in the past year or so, and including Amanda Palmer, she's kind of set some of the standards as far as like this crowdfunding aspect. I think we're redefining it, and there's a lot of blur over the past like decade of, okay, we're trying to make money the old-fashioned way. We can't make money. How do we make money? What do we do? And I think Amanda Palmer should be listed on like the top 10 to help define a path for musicians to take. Maybe it's not the only path, but it is definitely a path that they can take to try to pay the electric bill.
But I think you're kind of bringing up a good point, which is there's a difference between the sale, which is the ask, which is what she's talking about, and
Mhm.
she's talking about at the point of sale, at the point at which people are at their whatever, their crescendo or their apex, to use a music term, that you ask them then. But there's also this point that I think you and I talk about either on this show and also in other venues, that you have to bring them to that point where you can deliver something, right? And I guess the marketing part is the part that I guess some people struggle with the sale, but I think a lot of people even struggle with, how do I get people to see me? How do I get people in front of the music so that I can play this stuff right? And then really get to the point. However, I ask them, whether it's crowdfunding, whether it's direct appeal, whether it's, here's my capture page, you know, how much of this is marketing and how much of this is the sale
I
as a
think
musician?
it depends on the person. Like, for example, you talk about bringing them to a point where they're listening. I actually, maybe at the beginning that was a bigger struggle, but that actually came easy. And it's not necessarily because of me, it's because my fans were like, for example, I would show up at another gig and I would know the person, like, oh my goodness, Deborah E from Los Angeles, she's #1 in Los Angeles, she's here. And so then I would do an ad lib at that gig. So getting the word out. I mean, even my kids would go to school, it's like, Deborah E's not your mom. No, really. I mean, they show the Facebook page. It's like, no, see, it's connected. I show up as a kid. But and it's that almost like two different people, from the aspect that I could go to a PTA thing and no one would know that I'm anybody, and so you can kind of hide. But so in my particular case, and I think it varies from person to person, I didn't have a hard time bringing people there, and it's not very many fans, but like 40,000 fans. But I had a
Right,
really hard
right,
time getting them. I mean, if you could get 40,000 people to just pay 99 cents each, that's a fair amount. $40,000 is good, but I could never do it, because I'd show up and it's like, oh, I have this CD here. I want to help people. I want to give. I want to share the music. And so I would give the music away, not as an incentive, but just because that's what I wanted to do, which is actually why I started Social Web Cafe. The idea is I will use Social Web Cafe to make money, and then I can continue to give from my heart. Well, you know how it goes, Charles, because you've talked to me for a couple of years. What happens is Social Web
right.
Cafe eats up 100% of the
Correct.
time, and there's no time for the music. So I don't know if that was a good plan or not so good plan.
Well, as I look at, I think it's Amanda. I've got the story up here, and I guess even Prince, right? A lot of what they're doing without going through a marketing plan, right? I think they're doing these things creatively, where we've talked about these basics, right? That at some point, if they are the product that a company's got to have, or a product's got to have a USP, right? It's got to be something about what they have to offer that's different, that you want to have it over and above some of the other stuff, or even along with some of the other stuff you have. They're somehow or another, whether or not they're building a list by email or however the case, they've got these people who are looking for them, right? And some kind of doing some kind of database, even if it's on social media. And then there's this whole other part, which I think the Prince story is kind of highlighting, is there's this community aspect where I am such a part of, where I'm a part of you, right? And I show up, and not the tribe thing. I mean, I think that's kind of, people talk about that a lot, but somehow or another, I show up where you don't expect me to show up. I'm a part of who you are, and I'm here with you, kind of thing. And so these guys they're doing this stuff, and it's marketing, and it seems like some of the best people. And I think I came across a story that Sting does a lot of the same thing, that he takes the music seriously and the art seriously, but the stuff he does is really kind of almost a savvy way of doing all these marketing principles.
Well, and I think at the core, all of us humans, my husband and I get in these philosophical discussions all the time, but as far as, if you strip it down, I don't care what century you're looking at, if it's cavemen, at the very core, we as humans all want to be loved. We want to be
Right,
accepted. We
right,
want to be validated. And that's something that musicians that are able to connect with their audience, it gives that audience that feeling of importance, as far as, wow, this musician is singing to me. This musician really cares about me. And I think that's one of the reasons why, I mean, music is nice to listen to as well, but I think it's that connection, which is almost magical, that continues the whole music industry, no matter what, genre you listen to. And that's what some of these savvy marketers have figured. I think, I'm going to say that I think Prince is honestly doing it. I think Amanda Palmer is honestly doing it. I think it comes natural. I don't think they
yeah,
have to think about the connection,
right,
but they've realized that if you capitalize on it a little bit, that helps. I think where the challenge is, like in Prince's case, I don't know his financials, but I would imagine that he at least has enough money for the travel. And I think that's the hard thing for
right, yeah,
the indies to figure out at what point. Now Amanda obviously has figured out how to once you're out there. And she does like what she moves from hostel to hostel and camping. And I mean, she's an incredible lady at what she does. It might not be my lifestyle, but Amanda, I really respect you for what you do.
Right.
She
Yeah.
knows that she can turn that into a way to cover her costs. So I think that's what is that challenging differentiator. For example, not to babble on, but today I looked at, and I'm not paid to advertise this, but if you guys want to go look up patreon.com/Madeline Sklar.
Hmm.
I personally think Madeline, since we mentioned her, she's a music marketer and a social media expert. She has a brilliant page there. I watched her video, trying to figure out what is it that draws me in this video.
Right.
And you know, Patreon is like that kind of monthly crowd funding kind of thing where you say, hey, I really believe in what you're doing and your content, and it's mostly for content creators, and I'm going to pay, you know, $5 a month for what you do, and I get access to exclusive content and so forth. But she has turned it into, she has several different levels, just like crowdfunding. And her video, basically, it's like you're coming into the Madeline Sklar Club, and it's not all about me. It's all about you, but this enables me, by paying into this, I can give you that much more. I can give you personal content. So it's like, let's disperse the fees as far as a one-on-one coaching, so it's more affordable, so more people have access, and let's actually create this group. Well, what's she doing? She is, like you said, Charles, as far as that community, she's building a sense of all those people that are
Right.
paying her monthly. Now they feel valued. They feel loved. They feel, you know, but here's the I look at that and I said, Madeline, I got to interview you, because it really and truly, that page, that did it for me. I mean, that you should do a how-to on how people should set these up. But here's the question, Charles. She's doing it for social media. You know, she works in music marketing, but her whole page is all about, you know, I'll teach you how to do Twitter, I'll teach you how to do Facebook. How do you translate that into, and that's always been where I've struggled, is how do you translate what works in the marketing business world? Because we can say, hey, I'm going to teach you how to make millions.
Right.
But how do you do that in music? I'm going to make you feel good. I mean, what do you say? You're gonna have good sex after listening to my music? I mean, I didn't say that.
Right. Yeah. It's the whole. It is, and but I think it's the same in any business, right? Because obviously, if you're telling somebody, right, regardless of your product, I can make you $1 million. I can make you $1 million. That's going to bring people to. That's going to bring people from all walks of life. But if you say I can fix your sink, or I can sing to you, I mean, how do you then create urgency? How do you create, okay, man, I got to get this now, versus, you know, I'm gonna wait for this. I'm gonna get my groceries, because there was a point at which, right, I guess when we were coming along, that, okay, you know, for me, I don't know who it was at the time. I think I can't remember who I listened to, but okay, there might have been a Prince album going back then that I would get that over and above some of the needs that I had, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then even
those days.
Yeah, and so but you know, as you get older, right, you sort of say, well, you know, no, you know, Johnny needs a baseball mitt, and so I can't do that right now. Can't get this I can't get this Prince album. I'd love to hear it, right? Even if I wanted, even if I owned it. Let's take out the Spotify's and all that other stuff. Even if I wanted to own it, there's that decision, I think, as you get older, right, that you say, I don't know if I want to get that over and above something else. So there's not the same level of urgency, right? But some people are able to crack through that some kind of way, that somehow or another people say, you know what, I'm just getting this. I'm getting this, and I'm gonna play it at home. I'm gonna play it in the car. I'm not gonna tell my wife. I'm not gonna tell my kids. I'm gonna play this thing in the car. And so I guess that is the question, right? It is again at the point of sale, because I guess some people are skilled at bringing people to the point. But then there's the point at which you say, you make the ask, or you make them say, I gotta have this now.
Well, and I think that's part of the reason why statistics, Michael does all kinds of research on this as far as statistics show, and probably it's a development thing. The younger people are more likely to do that. I have to have it now, I'm gonna go buy it, which is why most of that music buying is happening, you know, that kind of 16, depending on what point they have access to a PayPal or credit card or whatever, or cash. At that point, you know, through 25 or so, and then after that starts to taper off. And I don't remember the numbers, but it's quite significant, where it makes sense why you have these young teeny boppers. Okay, that's a dated word, but as far as really targeting the younger audience, the younger artists, and so forth, because that's really where the money moves as far as the albums and things. I remember, yeah, when I was a kid, and I think some of this is why it worked back then and it doesn't now. For example, on the weekend, it's like, what am I doing this weekend? I'm going record shopping. Okay,
Right.
that really, that really dates me. But I mean,
Right.
I would
Right.
go through
No, the same thing. Right. Yeah.
bins, and oh my goodness, it was urgent. If I found one that was normally, like, it was A-list, if you will, and it ended up in the discount bin for whatever reason, they were just changing stock around. Oh, I had to have it then because I knew it was going to be
Exactly.
gone. And if I found someone that was maybe B-list, but I liked them, I would tend to like hide it. Like the discount bin was never in order, so it's like, okay, I'll hide this, and then maybe someone won't find it.
Right.
But I mean, I
Right.
would save up my pennies and I would have it planned out. So even if I didn't have a list, the next week when I went to it's like I'd walk in the store and all of a sudden it would hit me. Oh, I was looking for this album, and I would go try to find it. But see, now with online, you look at it and you go, okay, if I'm not buying it now, I think you're going to forget within 24 hours unless you actually like hear it
Right.
somewhere and say, oh yeah, I should go buy that. So I think that has really affected, because I used to budget for music when I when I was a kid.
Exactly. Even if you didn't, yeah. I mean, theoretically, you were trying to figure out, I need $10. I need to figure out how I'm gonna get $10, and it's got to be as soon as I can get it because I'm hearing this and I have to own it.
Exactly. I think, and you're absolutely right about the urgency. It's like now I'm like, oh, well, if I get it next week, soon. But yeah, then it was like, oh no. I mean, mom, she'd be in the fabric store and I'd be in the music store, and I'd walk over and go, and the fabric store was like, to me as a kid, gigantic. So I mean, I would go hunt her down, and then I would try the whole thing. It's like, oh mom, I just, if I didn't have my own money, it was a whole manipulation thing. Oh, I mean, I have to have this album because I'm sure I will learn something. There's good ethics in there, something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
It'd be like, here's some cash to get rid of you.
Well, I know, at some point, we probably don't have time to talk about it this week, and I know we want to talk about, the whole cover and monetization thing, that YouTube is doing, and so I'm wondering, if I know my music is going to appeal to those of us who are in this age range, right? Is that the way that you don't get it immediate? There's no immediacy, but maybe that is I guess, are the economics viable then to try to do something like that? Because I know musicians are really saying they're not all liking Spotify and all the other services because it's not really paying them, right? It's kind of paying them almost like
Wow, you mean
a
you get paid?
super residual. A super residual of a residual, as opposed to being direct with the people and really having them kind of at least you being able to see that you're impacting them and seeing that money kind of grow towards you.
I love that. And actually, that's an excellent segue. Try to keep these bite-sized enough so people listen to them. But to next week, actually cover that as far as the YouTube aspects. I think that is viable, and I think we are dependent on the industry to some extent to provide those opportunities. But then maybe the following week cover more in depth, like the Patreon, the crowdfunding opportunity for monetization. So the next 2 weeks in marketing momentum on kind of a monetization approach.
Yeah, right on.
That sounds good. Well, thank you, Charles. This has been wonderful. It's been great reminiscing about Prince too. And
That's right. That's right.
Purple
Yeah.
Rain. That's what I thought. You said like Purple Rain. I'm like, why did the Purple Wig come to mind when I think Prince? But that makes sense now.
I have a true confession right now about Purple Rain.
Okay. Oh.
I saw that. Okay, and this was back in '84. You know who I saw that movie with?
Who? Your wife?
My parents.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Whoops.
That's just yeah, exactly. Worst idea I've ever had. My dad said, "Oh, so I hear this movie's out. It's called Purple Rain." I said, "Yeah, let's go rent it." That was the worst decision I've ever made at home. So yeah.
Well,
So
you never did that kind of thing again. So you learn.
yeah, no, exactly.
Oh
Oh
wow,
man.
wow. That has me craving right now.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was had me squirming, right? Yeah, and I would have had me
Yeah.
cringing.
Yep. Excellent. Well, thank you, Charles, and we will catch all of you same time, same place next week. Marketing
Yeah.
Momentum with Charles and Deborah.
Bye bye, everybody. Bye bye, Deborah.